Part 3: Frailty, Anxiety, and the Irony of Life. The river of time has left deep marks on Grandma Okeihe's body. Okeihe had no time to grow old or even be sick, as she was busy taking care of her daughter Sunay. Her time revolved solely around her daughter's life, leaving no room for self-reflection. It seemed as if her time was wrapped around her daughter like the hands of a clock, dedicating every moment to Sunay. However, at the unbelievable age of 100, she couldn't escape the marks of time. Her skin had become thin like paper, her back hunched, and her steps unsteady. Recently, she mentioned that the sounds of the world were growing fainter and her hearing was fading. Even distant sounds seemed to echo faintly, making it harder for her to communicate with the world. Her world was shrinking, sinking into a silent space. Her memory was fading, with yesterday's events becoming as blurry as today. She would forget things she just said and start to mix up people's names. She would ask about Sunay's well-being, only to ask again a few minutes later. However, her love for Sunay remained steadfast through all the trials of time. Like the roots of a deep tree, her devotion stood unwavering. The love in her eyes for her daughter shone like a star, even in her blurry vision. Okeihe would laugh bitterly, saying that her daughter leaned on her while she slowly lost her mind. In that laughter, there was resignation and the small comfort her daughter provided. Her life was entangled with her daughter's, yet she found meaning in life through her. Like a lighthouse keeper searching for light in darkness, she found the reason for living in her daughter. Her existence seemed completed through her daughter. Taking care of her daughter, who was in discomfort, made her hands rough and her joints swollen. Each bone protruding from her skin told the tale of her difficult life. The daily care seemed to wear her body down. Even in the cold dawn air, she never neglected caring for her daughter. Changing her daughter's diapers, feeding her, and cleaning her body were constant tasks. Her ears perked up at the slightest movement from her daughter, never missing any sound. Despite this, Grandma Okeihe never showed any sign of annoyance or fatigue towards her daughter. Instead, she seemed happy at her daughter's small smiles, as if she had gained the world. That happiness was short but intense, becoming the driving force that made her feel alive again. Her dedication overflowed like an unstoppable spring. Her love, like an eternal flame, illuminated her life. Okeihe worried about what would happen to her daughter once she passed away. A giant wave of inexplicable anxiety flooded her mind.
Who will take care of Sunay if I'm not here? Who will be her hands and feet, her eyes? Who will protect this fragile child? How will this lonely child endure the cruelty of the world? How will Sunay live once my last breath is gone?
These questions weighed heavily on her heart, keeping her up at night worrying about her daughter's future. Her sleepless nights were long and lonely. Under the dim light in the old room, her shadow seemed to magnify the pain she was bearing alone. She was prepared to give up even her own life for her daughter.
As a mother, I shouldn't think this way, but I wish my daughter could go with me when I leave this world.
She quietly confessed a painful wish that was difficult to express. Her words contained not just resignation, but a deep love from a mother who couldn't bear to see her daughter suffer any longer. Thinking of the loneliness and pain her daughter would face after her death, she believed it was better to leave the world together. Tears welled up in her eyes, flowing like an unending river. The tears seemed to represent her long years of suffering. She was willing to sacrifice everything for her daughter. Her sacrifice stood firm like a giant mountain, providing eternal shade for her daughter. Oki was a recipient of basic livelihood support from the government, living on a meager amount of money each month. She saved every penny, even if it was just a few tens of thousands of won a month. Like a traveler in the desert cherishing a drop of water, she treasured her money. In her worn passbook, only small hopes for her daughter's future were accumulating. That small amount was a huge treasure to her. She thought that more money would be needed for her daughter to live alone after she died. That money was like a lifeline for her daughter. Though her frail body trembled weakly, her sense of responsibility towards her daughter was stronger than anything else. In the grim reality of an uncertain future, she tried to plant even a small seed of hope. Her life was a series of pain, but she showed resilience by not losing hope. Her hunched back was a strong support for her daughter. Every morning when the sunlight came through the window, she gained the strength to start another day for her daughter. Like an old lighthouse, she was burning everything she had to brighten her daughter's path.
Up next, story explanation.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're really glad you shared this story with us. It's incredibly powerful, really strikes a chord about resilience, about human connection.
Absolutely.
So today, we're diving into the source material you sent about a story called Mother's Years. And the material notes that this isn't fictional, it's based on a real account.
That's right, a real mother's story. It's presented in parts, and our goal, is to unpack the layers here, the love, the sacrifice, the sheer endurance.
And we're focusing today on part 3 specifically.
Yeah, the third part, which really brings us into their current reality. But to get the full weight of it, we should probably touch on the beginning first, right?
Good idea. A little context. So the early parts introduce Oki, who is now remarkably 100 years old.
100. And she's caring for her daughter, Sunai, who's 68.
And Sunai, the story tells us, is full body paralyzed. She spent most of her life lying down, eyes, just looking at the ceiling.
It's a stark image, and it all stems from a tragedy when Sunai was tiny, just 4 years old. A fall, yeah. Which led to the paralysis diagnosis. Just devastating.
Unimaginable. And the sources, they really detail Oki's response, her immediate, almost frantic search for a cure.
Oh, completely. All over the country, hospitals, clinics, acupuncturists, traversing really difficult terrain, the material says.
Tireless effort, just relentless.
Yeah.
But sadly, no improvement for Sune.
None. And then adding to it all, her husband left.
So she was alone in this.
Pretty much. And that's when she had to find a way to support them, so she went back to teaching.
Right. She was a teacher for 30 years, eventually retiring.
Mm-hmm. And the source mentions the guilt she felt during that time, having to leave Sune to go to work.
That must have been immense. But then retirement changes everything.
Totally. Her life shifts to become entirely about Sune's care, full-time.
And it's not just physical care, is it? There's this other dimension that emerges.
Exactly. Oki starts teaching Sune, teaching her to read and write by hand, reading literature to her.
And discovers that Sune has this bright mind, despite everything.
Yeah, a very capable mind trapped in her body. And finding that it brought Oki this incredible joy, real hope, maybe for the first time in a long time.
That hope is sort of the crucial setup for where part 3 takes us.
Right. Now we get into the present day, the challenges they face now. And time has definitely taken its toll, especially on Oki.
The description of her at 100 is quite vivid in the source material.
It really is. The physical decline is laid bare. Her skin, it's described as thin, like paper.
And her back bent, her steps unsteady. Hearing loss, too.
Yeah, increasing hearing loss, which, makes connecting with the world even harder. It isolates her.
And it's not just physical. Her memory is affected, too.
Mm-hmm. Recent things get hazy, forgetfulness creeping in. But, and this is powerful, the sources make a point of saying her love for Sune.
Unshakable.
Absolutely solid. Like a deep root, it says. That remains strong.
That contrast is really something. The fading body and mind, but that core of love. Just unwavering.
It is, and the material shares Oki's own reflection on it, which is quite moving. She apparently feels that while Sune leans on her physically...
Oki leans on Sune spiritually.
Kind of, yeah. As her own mind fades, she leans on Sune's spirit. And she says this with a kind of bittersweet laugh, the source notes, like resignation, but also finding real comfort in her daughter.
Wow. And the physical demands haven't lessened, have they?
Not at all. The daily routine is still intense. Changing diapers, washing, feeding, constant care.
Her hands are mentioned specifically.
Yeah, the sources point to her hands, rough, thick, joints protruding. A physical record of decades of hard labor, almost like the work has consumed her body.
Yet her dedication, it just doesn't waver.
Never. Rising before dawn, always alert to Sune's slightest need, and crucially, never showing frustration.
And finding joy in small things.
Those small smiles from Sune, the material describes them as these, brief bursts of energy that keep her going, powerful even if fleeting.
So, okay, she's 100. Her body is frail, memory fading. Where does her mind go? What's the deepest worry?
Well, that's the core of this section, really. The overwhelming fear, uncertainty about what happens to Sunai when she's gone.
That must be terrifying.
It is. Yeah. And the sources list her specific questions, the ones that haunt her. They're heartbreaking.
Like what?
Things like, who will care for Sunai? Who will be her hands and feet, her eyes, Who's going to protect this frail child?
Oh, gosh.
How will a child left alone survive the harshness of the world? How will Sunai live when my last breath is gone? It's just raw fear.
That level of dependence and knowing you won't always be there. And this leads to a very difficult confession mentioned in the source.
Yeah, it's heavy. Oki says something like, as a mother, I know I shouldn't think this way, but I strongly wish my daughter could go with me when I leave this world.
That's hard to hear. But the source provides some context for that thought.
It does, very carefully. It frames it not as abandonment or anything like that, but as the most extreme form of motherly love. The interpretation is that she wants to spare Sunai the suffering and loneliness she believes Sunai would face without her. It's about protection, even from life itself, if that life means unbearable pain after she's gone. It just shows the depth of her own pain and sacrifice.
Okay, yeah, that reframes it completely. It's born from this intense love and fear.
Exactly. Pure protective instinct, taken to its absolute limit.
And practically speaking, how are they managing? The sources mention her financial situation.
Right. She's a recipient of the National Basic Living Allowance, so very little income, meager.
Yet she's trying to save.
Determinedly, saving tiny amounts each month. The material uses this image saving like a desert traveler saves water.
Wow.
And she calls these savings Sunai's lifeline, a small buffer for the future she dreads. It's incredible responsibility down to the very last cent.
So the picture we're left with in this part is this incredibly frail 100-year-old woman.
Trembling, unsteady.
But with this immense, almost unbelievable strength of will and responsibility for her daughter.
Yeah, the source says her bent back is like Sunai's pillar, and Oki herself is like an old lighthouse.
Burning itself out to light the way.
Burning itself out, yeah. Planting these tiny seeds of hope in a really bleak situation.
When you take a step back from the details, this part of the story, it really forces you to think, doesn't it? About sacrifice, about love.
It really does. This sheer scale of devotion, lasting a lifetime, continuing at age 100. Facing these fears, what does that level of commitment even look like, feel like? What does it make you, the listener, think about?
Yeah, it challenges your ideas about strength, about what love requires. And as you said, this deep dive covered part 3. But the source material doesn't end here.
No, there's a fourth part. The conclusion to the story, offering perhaps more reflection or a sense of culmination.
Something we can look forward to exploring in another deep dive.
Definitely.
So as we sort of absorb this part, the weight of Oki's present reality and her fears.
Maybe the thought to sit with is how love expresses itself, not just in big moments, but in the quiet, relentless daily grind of care, year after year, decade after decade.
For 100 years.
100 years. What does it truly mean to be someone's lifeline, especially when you're facing the end of your own?
Those are definitely thoughts that will stick with you. As we wrap up this deep dive for today, we really encourage you to reflect on what resonated with you from this part of Oki and Sunai's story.
Yeah, what image or feeling stands out?
We'll be back to continue exploring this incredible account with you soon.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support helps us create even better content.